Is it actually possible to get a perfectly layered print with inks? I've always been afraid to try multi-layered prints because I thought I'd never be able to achieve the desired look I wanted. But I think I've come up with a simple process that I'll break down into manageable steps. Let's get started to see if it works. I'm using a 6x6 gel plate and I'm often asked which brand is best. This may be a little controversial, but I personally don't have a favorite. But the brand I'm using today is a gel press. Before I lay down my color, I'd like to briefly discuss paper. When I gel print, I usually sit down for a couple hours and just do pull after pull with no project in mind. And so I'll just use regular printer paper. Because I'm wanting to make a card with this print, I'm going to use Distress Heavystock so I can add splatters. Or are they spatters? I'm gonna let you decide. Let's start a discussion down in the comments. I'll be using some Oxide inks today, and my current favorite color combination is Uncharted Mariner, Rusty Hinge, and Lost Shadow. Other inks work really well on a gel plate, so I recommend experimenting with what you have on hand. I want to emphasize as I lay down the color that each layer we're going to add to this print is going to add so much texture and depth, so I hope you stick with me to see the results. Now after the ink has been applied to the gel plate, I like to blend it out with a 6-inch brayer. I believe that using a large brayer is essential because it makes it easier to get the ink smooth. Now that the ink is smooth, the first layer will be a stencil, and it's important to note that this look requires a stencil with a lot of space. One of my favorite stencils to use is this leaf one, but you can also use circle stencils, these geometric shapes, just something that has a lot of space because we're going to be using a stamp inside of that space. I'll show you in just a second what I'm talking about. We're going to add the stencil right on top of the gel plate, and I'm going to be using a Carabelle Studio rubber texture. These are designed to use with gel printing, so they're ideal for this technique, but use whatever you have on hand. With this stamp, we're going to be lifting up color. There will be no additional color stamped onto the plate. That is an option, but I'll leave that for another day. We're just going to place the stamp directly over the stencil, and if your stencil happens to be bigger, you can move the stamp around, but be mindful that you're picking up the color from the plate and you'll transfer it to other areas on your background. After we're done stamping through the stencil, we're going to set the stamp aside and we're going to lift up that stencil off of the gel plate. And we're going to set that aside as well. It's difficult to see what's going on the gel plate, but we're gonna trust the process. I'm going to grab my Heavystock and I'm going to place it directly on top of the gel plate. I enjoy doing something my crafty friends call the happy finger dance on my background. And by not applying even pressure to the paper, it gives me a grungy effect that I absolutely love. Now we're going to do our first pull, and remember, this is only the first layer, but it already looks amazing, so let's keep going. There's still a lot of ink left on the brayer, so we're just going to roll it onto the gel plate. We're looking to make the colors a little bit more vibrant and just add a little bit more texture to it. And I like to use bubble wrap for this. It's something you probably already have laying around. This is such a fun way to add texture to your prints. Now I'm going to put the background back on the plate, keeping in mind that the Uncharted Mariner is at the top of the plate, so I need to make sure it's at the top of my paper so it matches up. As you can see, that second pull adds so much to the background. Now believe it or not, we are not finished. And there's still so much ink left on that brayer, so let's use it. After we lay down the ink onto the gel plate, this time I'm going to use a polka dot stamp. But again, use whatever you have in your stash for the desired look you want. Now this time we're going to take the stamp and cover the entire plate, or as much as the stamp allows. This layer will be subtle, but the extra step is definitely worth it. Now we're going to take the background, add it to the gel plate, do the happy finger dance, and let's do another pull to see what we get. And remember, this is the third pull, so the ink is going to be more intense. Isn't this background amazing? The depth and texture we got with each pull really paid off for the end result. Now I'm going to add some water splatters to my background, and because I use Oxide inks, it's going to look really cool, and save it to make a card later on. I really do think that breaking down the process into easy, manageable steps really helped me achieve the look I was going for. And I hope it has inspired you to get out your gel plate and get creating. Now I have to be honest, once I get printing, I cannot stop, so I need to clean my gel plate. And I do this by adding some water and wiping it up with a cloth. It's that simple. Now I'm ready for my next print. And there's still so much to learn, and that's why I created this short playlist where I share even more tips, techniques, and you may even see some more happy finger dancing. You never know. I'll see you there.